Now I'd like to ask to for the floor Magdalena Pacholska, who has already mentioned herself. She's linked with the University of Amsterdam, specifically with the Instituut, where she's the Marie Skłodowska-Curie fellow of the postdoctoral fellow, right? Magda obtained her PhD at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem as part of the Human Rights Under Pressure program. And she had, well, broad international experience, but today she will sort of talk about the thing that Ala brought in, AI, artificial intelligence. So her brief presentation will cast some light on military use of AI. I'll give you.
Thank you very much.
And the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's very refreshing. You might be the first person in my career who pronounced my last name correctly. It's very pleasant. I have to start with a little bit of an explanation. And I think you, Katarzyna, mentioned that lawyers are not experts in technology. That's very right. Please remember this during the Q&A. As you see from the title, we're changing the narrative a little bit. Because all the presentations were very positive and very constructive. This one will be destructive. We're dealing with destructive technologies, and you'll see how badly in a second that works. Okay, so a little bit about the project. I'm a Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellow, which means that I'm contractually obligated to tell you that this project has received funding from the Marie Skłodowska-Curie grant agreement, which number I still don't remember. The project is supposed to last for 3 years. I'm right in the middle of it. There's a tendency, if you ever apply for a Marie Curie Fellowship, to have a acronym, which is sexy and fresh and catchy. It's not easy. This is mine. It worked. So the threshold is quite low. Jack has left, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think he would mind.
You never know. So there are 3 main questions I'm dealing with in my research and my work. The first one is what are the specific legal and ethical challenges of military AI? Second is who can be internationally responsible for military AI? And the last one is how can such a responsibility be implemented? These are some examples of completed and ongoing research. I'm working as part of interdisciplinary. Can I go? Yes, yeah. I'm part of Dilemma, which is a good example of a sexy abbreviation. Dilemma is a project funded by FNO in the Netherlands, and it stands for Designing International Law and Ethics into Military Artificial Intelligence. There are 7 of us. We have a postdoc in computer sciences who would be much better placed to answer all of the questions I guess this audience might have. They have me as an international lawyer with military background. And we also have a philosopher ethicist who has a problem with valorization, as you got from my previous question. It's actually a very real concern in humanities and social sciences, how to explain that our research might be useful to the general public, especially when it's that distractive. All right. I'm not sure that the slide is needed here, given the questions we heard before, but you might all be aware that AI is a new buzzword. Everyone is talking about AI. Everyone likes AI. There is a lot of research money in AI, as also Jack mentioned. I figured that it's once something is on the cover of The Economist, it's real. So this one is from July or June last summer anyway. In military sciences, which is my second hat, I'm a military lawyer, really. I've been working with military for quite a while. Artificial intelligence is defined as the ability of machines to perform tasks normally required, which normally require human intelligence, like recognizing patterns, learning from experience, drawing conclusions, and stuff like this. AI, again, is seen as a pervasive technology. It has many applications. Many of them are constructive rather than destructive. It's very important to keep in mind the distinction between narrow AI, which is what we have right now, which basically can solve a given problem. It cannot identify it, but once the problem is placed in front of the either software or hardware relying on AI, it can solve it. Versus general AI, it doesn't exist yet, and I'm not the right person to tell you when it might possibly come to fruition. Now, the AI in the military domain is full of misunderstandings. That's something what I like to call the Skynet mentality. I'm pretty sure that people in this room know what Skynet was. Yeah, you've all seen Terminator, right? Okay. So Skynet was an example of a general AI with motives and emotions, and it was very weird. That's not what we do. Don't worry. That's not how military AI looks like. We're not there. We're not even close to being there. The idea of how AI works in military domain is vastly misunderstood. There is a campaign called Ban Killer Robots. In general, in public discourse, there's a tendency to refer to killer robots whenever we talk about military AI. Again, incorrect. Relatedly, because we call them killer robots, there's a I don't want to say a threat to humanity, but there's a perception that they might kill us one day and destroy the planet Earth, and we have to fly to Mars. Again, not there. Another massive misconception is that AI is developing in a regulatory vacuum. This is something I'm happy to talk about. Absolutely incorrect. This is probably a good place to mention that those of you who follow the EU legislation and might have heard of the EU AI Act, the military uses are excluded. So this kind of fuels the narrative that there is no regulation. I'll get to this in a second. Two major recurring misconceptions I run across in my work is that artificial means inhumane, which is obviously wrong. It just means not human, but not necessarily inhumane, because it doesn't have emotions. Again, it cannot be inhumane, but this is very, very popular misconception. And another issue, another misconception is that autonomy or automation, which are related concepts in the military sciences, because there is no clear division line between autonomy and automation. Long story short, most of the military AI is automated, but there has been a tendency from the industry to refer to all the equipment as autonomous because it has this, newer, more technologically advanced vibe. But anyhow, there's a problem with referring to either autonomy or automation as an all or nothing quality of the system, rather than the mode of operation of some of its functions. And you'll see in a second what's the difference. So what's in the spotlight? Internationally, there is an ongoing debate of the United Nations as a main floor in different fora within the UN. But everyone is talking about the autonomous weapon systems, sometimes called lethal autonomous weapon systems. So there is a bunch of abbreviations. Sometimes they are referred to as fully autonomous weapon systems, as kind of, to increase the threat they might possibly pose. It's been almost a decade. We still don't have an agreed upon definition of what the autonomous systems actually are. In scholarship and in popular discussions and in diplomacy, what you see in red is the most frequently adopted definition, namely that autonomous weapon systems are systems that, once activated by a human, can select and engage targets without further human intervention. This is originally the US definition, with minor tweaks adopted by the International Committee of the Red Cross. I'm sorry we don't have Q&A during the session because I have a tendency to use a lot of acronyms, and if you don't get one of them, just ask me the question. The genie out of the bottle, I'm going to refer to engagement in a military sense, which means it's basically a term of attack. The last decision point before attacking the target is an engagement. The focus of international diplomacy is the question whether they being autonomous weapon systems, are legal or illegal. or maybe they are morally reprehensible or immoral or just wrong. There's a lot of discussion which crosses the line between legal and ethical, which doesn't help doesn't help the understanding of what is actually going on. What's really out there, and this is an important slide. What you see right here is the targeting process used by NATO and all the NATO states, and basically most of the advanced militaries. It has 6 phrases, and I'm not going to go for all of them. Don't worry, I've seen that look.
But he's still not standing, so it's
Okay.
Time.
What I would like you to take away from the diagram is that targeting is not a simple binary decision. It's not on or off. It's not attack, not attack. It doesn't work like this. Targeting process is a deliberate, interactive process in which different parts of the armed forces are engaged. And it's effectively, the goal is to implement the decision of the commander. And this is crucial. All other steps are effectively facilitating the implementation of what commander has decided. With the red arrows, you see where the AI or automation, autonomy is used, and we'll get into those 3 phases in a second. But it's extremely important to remember that, or to realize that much of the criticism of implementing AI by the militaries around the world is coming from the idealized version of human control, of how the existing military equipment actually works as of now, even without the AI implemented. And it's also often divorced from realities of the world. There is a tendency to idealize humans and human behavior in the battlefield, which is something humans are really bad at. We get scared. We have a tendency to be. We have vengeance. Human is an ugly business. It's always been and always will be. The difference is that humans are much more inclined to be driven by emotions. Machines don't have this problem. So as I mentioned, the AI has been used to help facilitate further human capabilities in regards to the 3 phases with the arrows, that is target identification and prioritization, weaponeering, and target selection and engagement. Engagement being the attack. T stands for target. All right, so target identification and prioritization. It's very bluntly put, who and what to shoot. We need to know what to target, what needs to be targeted, and what can be targeted legally. I really like to use this example as the added value of AI or any technological advancement for the military, because target identification evolved from scouting, meaning individual soldiers crossing the enemy line to see with their own eyes what's going on and what's the stage of the enemy, what are the weak points of the enemy. It still is extremely dangerous for the individual soldiers who are on the mission to do that. So we went from this to complex ISR system. ISR is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And just to show you how not groundbreaking, the opposite of groundbreaking, the recent advancements in military technologies are, the first twist in how we identify and prioritize targets has come with the radar. Radar is an invention of the Second World War, which allowed our soldiers, our human resources to stay in much safer place than they would have, but also allowed the commanders to see further than human sight has ever been able to identify targets. But still, with the early radar, the data points had to be analyzed by humans and translated into often physical maps still by humans. You can imagine that it took time and energy and massive resources. What we have right now are the AVAX, which stands for Airborne Warning and Automation Command System, which allows for massive collection of data, automated analysis, tracking and potential threats, and sharing it. This is what NATO is using above all the NATO countries, much more frequently recently over Poland for obvious reasons. The technology that is being tested right now is called Titan. It's American. Americans are very good at the good abbreviations, unlike myself, which can do all of the above. So it's an AVAX plus. Basically, it also allows for prioritization of targets, meaning shoot what needs to be shot first. It's as simple as that. Sorry. Weaponeering. Weaponeering is a mix of weapon. I'm running out of time already. I'm gonna skip this one.
No.
Otherwise, I should leave.
Okay, weaponeering is a mix of weapons and engineering, simply put. Initially, we had a Joe. In any military stories, it's always a Joe. If you need a random soldier, it's a Joe. So Joe used to run to the magazines and check what's there, what we can use. Now it's done by the Firestorm. The Firestorm processes the terrain, knows what's in the magazines, and is much better in determining how it can be used. What we have can be used effectively to maximize the force projection. Target selection and engagement, which is, if you remember, the key part of a tentative definition of autonomous weapon systems, right? It's a system that can select and engage targets on its own once activated. Sounds a little bit scary if you see it, on its own and in red. This is what it really is. So target selection and engagement, believe me or not, is actually a good thing. What we used to have were dumb bombs. Dumb bombs follow ballistic trajectory, right? And that's why we have carpet bombing of Dresden, for example. When it comes to humanitarian protection and civilian protection, dumb bombs are the worst thing you can possibly use on the battlefield, especially these days when we fight in the cities. What we have right now are loitering or homing munitions, which can acquire and follow targets. Again, think of torpedo. Torpedoes look like this as well. The technology from the 70s, really. And the key takeaway of all of this, and this is the AI as implemented in target selection and engagement, is the basic AI, so-called rule-based AI. So that's what you see at the bottom, right? It functions on a command like if it, whatever it is, it's usually a projectile falling at, about to fall in a city. If it matches what we have already in the database created by humans, then aim and fire, if not keep searching. It's really a simple rule-based system. So no Skynet. No Skynet whatsoever. As to the fears of AI, military AI developing in a regulatory vacuum, again, not a problem. This is actually a position very fiercely advanced by Poland at the UN level, that the fielding state is always responsible for what it fields. Whatever the state decides to give its armed forces to use on the battlefield needs to be released in accordance with the law. The law in this case is called either international humanitarian law or law of armed conflict, depending on the audience which you're speaking to. We also have in place since it's 1977 a standing obligation binding on all states to do weapon review, which means that before a weapon is released to any armed forces, it needs to pass those 3 questions. Basically, whether it's already banned by a specific treaty. Biological, chemical weapons are a good example of that. Note that nuclear is not on the list. So according to the standing international law, that's something that worries me much more, is the fact that nuclear weapons are not banned. There was a case at the ICJ, International Court of Justice, where the court decided that it cannot determine that it can never be a situation when a nuclear weapon might legally be used. So as of now, it's not outlawed. Just, in case you hear the news about what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, it's not illegal to use nuclear weapons unless they're used in a way which creates superfluous injury or is inherently indiscriminate, meaning it cannot distinguish between a combatant and a civilian. And a classic example of this is anti-personnel mine. Landmines are actually a good example used by all of the armed forces when they defend automation and autonomy. Because this is the simplest example, the landmine, of an automated weapon. Conclusions. I'm a big fan of civil society and civil society engagement and pushing back on industry and armed forces, but it needs to be done without demonizing the technology and while actually understanding the development trajectory of what we used to have, what we have, and how it helps us fight better and more effectively. Many of the narratives are often overhyped. I'm a little bit sick, I'm sorry. But the pushing back by the civil society or academia should not be done in a way that blurs the existing norms. We have to remember we can criticize the norms, we can say they're not enforced enough, we can often argue for more regulation, but it needs to be done with the sufficient knowledge of what's already there. It is personally my position that an existing law is sufficient. Many of my colleagues disagree with me on this, depending on the part of the society they come from. And finally, where I believe, and this is an ongoing part of my research, the crucial the trigger point and the key point in military AI would be when we start relying more on machine learning. So we move from rule-based systems to machine learning, and this will be a real game changer. For now, it's only used to identify objects for target. So remember the slide about target identification. This is where we use machine learning, but that's it. And the progress is surprisingly slow, but it's happening. It's there. Yes, I'm about to finish. Tomasz will be happy. I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.